Good morning, good morning. This is Jamaica Live. We're on Bridge 99, broadcasting from Kingston. And then, of course, after 12, we link with our sister station, Irie Jam, in New York. And let me just alert you from now that I believe as of next week, can we confirm that? As of next week, we're going to be starting the program at 12 o'clock at noon Jamaica time in order to synchronize with the change in the United States, the change in New York, when they go from daylight saving time back to Eastern Standard Time. So as of next week, we come on at 12 o'clock here, and we go to 2 o'clock in Jamaica, which will be 12 o'clock in New York, going to 2 o'clock in New York. So bear that in mind. Welcome to the program. You know, it's the 29th of August, you know. We have only 4 months of the year left. And not long from now, we're going to be starting to play some Christmas carols. Can you believe that? Another year almost has gone by. But thank you for joining me, those in Jamaica, and those who will join at 12 o'clock when we link with Irie Jam. Welcome to the program, Jamaica Live on Bridge 99. A source of much complaint, especially in the corporate area, is the prevalence of construction projects, especially housing developments that are in breach of the regulations. You see projects going up almost everywhere. In many instances, what is being built is far different from what was approved. So, you know, you may live in a quiet neighborhood. You see them zinc up a piece of land beside you or in front of you. Construction starts, and before long, they're up to 3, 4, 5 floors. The beautiful view that you used to have is now completely blocked. Later on, people start moving in. There isn't enough parking for all those people. So many end up parking on the street. All of a sudden, traffic on the road becomes a nightmare. Sometimes you can hardly drive out of your gate. Under the law, the building code, they were supposed to put up a notice indicating what it is that they intend to build, so that as an affected person, you have the opportunity to raise your objection. All of this is supposed to be done before approval is granted by the local planning authority. In the case of the corporate area, the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation. But very often, nothing of the sort is done. You just see workmen busy. Backhoe busy, cement trucks going in and out. You hear the workmen cussing all kind of cloth on the work site, because that's what you hear so often. When you check it out, they may not have got the necessary approval for the project. No building permit was issued. Or what often happens is that they get a permit for a particular set of plans, but what they proceed to construct is based on a completely different set of plans. Let me give you an example, a specific example. Some time ago, I went to visit a friend on King's Drive, which is off Halifax Avenue on East King's House Road. I noticed a building being constructed right opposite the man's house. They had completed 3 floors and were now putting in the steel for a 4th floor. I asked what it was that was being built and was told that they didn't know. They were never informed. No notice was ever posted. They just saw the building going up. I took the trouble to investigate, and what did I find? Approval had been given for 9 one-bedroom units. 9 one-bedroom units. But 9 one-bedroom units taking up 4 floors? Are you crazy? Since getting the approval for the 9 one-bedroom units, they had applied for modification of the approved plans in order to accommodate more units. But that modification had not yet been approved. It had been referred to NEPA, since any development of more than 9 units must be referred to NEPA. When I spoke to NEPA, it said it had just received the modification application and it had not yet reviewed it. But the developer couldn't bother to wait on that. He had finished 3 floors and he was now working on a 4th. Who knows? Maybe he was going to build a 5th and a 6th floor. So I got in touch with the KCAMC, the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation. They visited the property and found that what was being built far exceeded what had been approved. They issued a stop order. But the last time that I checked, work was going on the same way. But it is not just the impunity with which some developers treat the regulations, the law. In this particular case, threats were issued to some of the residents in this area because of the intervention that I had made. And if those who issued the threats are listening, let me assure them that no one asked me to report the matter. I took it upon myself because what I saw was a flagrant violation of the law. If threats are to be issued, they really should be directed at me. I mean, I'm used to that. I know how to deal with them. You know, we complain bitterly about indiscipline and lawlessness. The taxi drivers on the road, the people who dump their garbage in the drains and gullies and cause the place to flood out when it rains. The hustlers who cut down trees to burn coal on the hillsides and cause landslides, which sometimes leave communities marooned for weeks or months. But is it not the same in discipline and lawlessness when someone erects a building that is contrary to what was approved and is in violation of the building code and violates the rights of others in the neighborhood? Is that not also indiscipline and lawlessness? And who are the persons who should be held accountable for this? A whole heap of them. There is enough blame to go all around. First of all, the local authority. In this case, the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation. It is they who have the power and the duty to regulate construction development. Are they mindful about what they approve? Are they giving due regard to things like zoning restrictions, density limitations, parking requirements, sewage disposal? And after they issue the building permit, do they monitor the construction to ensure that what is done is in conformity with what was approved? Under the law, building inspectors are supposed to inspect the construction activities and issue certificates of compliance at varying stages of the construction. I think at 4 stages. And it is against the law for a developer to move from one stage to the next stage without getting that certificate of compliance from the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation. So for example, they must do that when the foundation is completed and before the walls start to go up. They must do that again when it reaches bell course and the roof or second floor is being cast. The Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, I am told, has 11 building inspectors. That's what they are supposed to do. Go inspect the project and make sure that what is being done is in conformity with what was approved, and to issue that certificate to say, well, so far you have conformed, you are hereby authorized to move now to the next stage of the construction. Then there is the developer, the prime culprit. The developer knows what he got approval to build, but he goes and builds something completely different. And it is not that he decided to change the plans in midstream. He jolly well knew what he was intent on building from the start. But he prepared two sets of plans. One that met the legal requirements and for which he knew he could get approval, and a separate set of plans that includes many more units that he knew he could not get approval for. But that is what he was determined to build, because that is what would give him the biggest profit at the end of the project. We tried, for this program, we tried to get somebody from the real estate board to come on the program to discuss this matter with us. They declined. They said it was outside of their scope. Outside of their scope, my foot. Real estate developers have to be licensed if they are doing more than 5 lots or more than 5 units. Check Section 35 of the Real Estate Dealers and Developers Act. If they carry out a development contrary to what was approved, in other words, if they carry out an illegal development, shouldn't their license be looked at? Shouldn't they be called to account? But there's plenty of blame still left to go around. What about the architect, who under the law is required to supervise the construction? He knows what was approved, but he seems to be quite happy to supervise something that he knows is different from what was approved. He's a licensed practitioner. He has to be licensed under the Architects Registration Act. Should he not be held accountable? Should we not take a look at his license and see whether or not he should continue to hold that license? There's more blame still. What about the contractor? He cannot build without a detailed set of plans. So should the contractor be allowed to get off scot-free when he's using a set of plans that he knows was not approved, because it doesn't carry the approval stamp of the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation. But he's using that set of plans anyhow. He might very well be registered with the National Contracts Commission. Should we look at that registration? If you're behaving in that kind of illegal way, should you continue to be eligible to receive government contracts? What about the quantity surveyor? He's the one who has to issue a certificate showing how much work has been completed before the contractor can be paid. He too has a set of plans that he knows is different from what was approved. So should he be let off the hook, the quantity surveyor? I'm not done yet. What about the banks and the insurance companies? They are the ones who provide the financing for these projects. They know what was approved because they know the number of units that are to be sold so that they can get back their money and the interest. They know what is being built is different from what was approved. But they seem to be quite happy to go along with it. Everything they say is everything. Deep in the belly of this problem is raw, naked corruption. some people eat enough food to facilitate it and to make it go on. It's just like paying a money to get a driver's license or a road license or to avoid a traffic ticket. Only that in this case, it is plenty more money. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions of dollars. I'm happy to see that the court is becoming more aggressive in dealing with cases that are brought before them. One judge actually went and visited a project on Roseberry Drive where breaches were reported. And she went there to see for herself what was going on, and she saw. And she was convinced that what was going on was contrary to what was approved. And today I want to commend her strongly. That is the kind of judge activism that I like to see and we need to see more of. What will cause this rampant and nefarious practice to cease? Enforcement? Severe penalties? Regular inspection? Stop orders where necessary? Orders to rectify breaches? That power is given to the local authority under the law. And those orders can include the requirement to demolish structures or parts of structures that are in breach of the law. That power is also given to the local authority under the law to say to them, now look, that third and fourth floor that you put up was not approved. Tear it down. They have that power. It is only when we get serious, when the violators and their facilitators start to feel it in their pockets, that they are going to straighten up and fly right. When developers find that they will have to tear down the concrete and steel that they borrowed so much money to put up, they will start behaving themselves. When the architects and the quantity surveyors recognize that they may lose their licenses if they go along with this illegality, they will start saying to the developers, no, we can't do that. Because if we do that, we're going to lose our license. When the banks and the insurance companies find that some of the money that they advanced for these projects, they may not be able to recover. And they will now have to settle for what they can squeeze out of the developer if they can find him. They will now start to insist that the projects they finance must conform with all the requirements of the law. The courts, as I have said, have started to get very serious. There is that 100 million apartment complex that was built on Upper Montrose Road in breach of the restrictive covenant. The court ordered that the entire building be demolished, the whole $100 million worth of it be demolished. Big financial loss to the developers and those who provided the financing. That matter is now before the appeal court, so I won't say any more about it. The point I want to make, however, is that we have the remedy. The law in this case is not an ass. All we need to do is to apply it without fear and without favor. And we shouldn't have to go to court to have that done. We have the power to do that long before it gets to the court. The court should be only our last resort. Building construction lawlessness. That's what we're talking about today when we come back. Welcome back. It's Jamaica Live. We're on Bridge 99. Building construction lawlessness. That's what we're talking about today. And it's perhaps good that we're going to start with a representative from the chief regulatory agency, the local authority, the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation. I'm pleased to have joining us on the program the chief engineer at the KSAMC, Mr. Xavier Chavans. Mr. Chavans, welcome to the program.
Good morning, sir.
How are you?
I'm good. God be the glory. I'm live and well.
Good, that's good. Tell me, there's a prevalence a preponderance of complaints of building construction activity taking place either without approval or taking place in a manner that is at variance with what was approved. We have the law in place. You now have the new Building Act, which I think was enacted in 2018. You have the powers of enforcement. Why is this situation so prevalent?
Yes, sir. Good morning today. Well, we have the 2018 Building Act that was promulgated in 2019, January 2019. However, there's still an issue, a deficiency, because the regulations are still provisional. They are not yet law. So that is where most of our problem lies in terms of exercising the law. So we have an issue there.
But all right, granted, and I don't know why it has taken so long for the regulations to be brought into effect. But even then, I applied to KSAC for approval. I know that there are certain conditions that I have to meet that have to do with density, it has to do with sewage disposal, it has to do with a range of things. So based on that, I prepare a set of plans. I submit those plans. The KSAC examines those plans and it decides either on its own if it's less than 10 units or after referral to NEPA if it's more than 10 units. It gives me approval for what I presented. And then I go and I start my construction. But I put away those plans that you approved. I have a different set of plans that you never saw, that were never submitted to you. Those are the plans that I am using to build put up this building. And those plans involve twice as many units as you had approved. Now, this is something that goes on all over the place. There's a particular case that I had to report to your boss, Mr. Robert Hill, and as a result of which a stop order was placed. But this is going on. Why is this allowed to go on? Why don't, under the regulations, KSAC is supposed to inspect the construction while it is taking place. I think there are 4 inspections that must be done at different stages. And a developer and a contractor is not supposed to move from one stage of construction to the next stage of construction unless he gets a certificate of compliance. Isn't that correct?
That is not. That's the certificate of completion and compliance that you speak of ties to the regulation. So that's where we have an issue where that is concerned. However, we still do inspections. We have our mandatory inspections and we have phase inspection in terms of our floors, in terms of our foundation and our roof and so forth.
When are those inspections being done?
Yes, those inspections are being done. When we cite breaches, we issue stop notices and then we follow up with our enforcement activities.
Mr. Chevan, I'm not your adversary, I'm your friend because I want to see this thing go properly. But in the case of this project on Kings Drive that I spoke about, they got approval for 9 one-bedroom units. When I spoke to Mr. Robert Hill, they were putting on the 4th floor. And it was after I spoke with him that he sent a team there and immediately issued a stop order. No inspection could have been going on before that, or they would have found that out. They would have needed me to report it to them.
Yes, sir. In terms of our inspections, we try our utmost best in terms of stages of completion. For that particular site, which was due an inspection, the developers that went ahead put the horse before the cart before they would have gotten any consideration for this additional. They had applied they are submitting an amendment for the additional works that we're doing. But the law is clear. You do not do any work until you get a permit to do so.
All right, take time with me, Mr. Chevan, because my brain is slow. Take time with me. Follow me now. Yes. They got approval for 9 one-bedroom units. All right. When they lay the foundation for those 9 one-bedroom units, they're not supposed to lay 1 row of concrete blocks until they get a certificate to sell it so they can move forward. We don't have to wait for no new regulations for that. That was always in the law.
You're quite right, sir. We do that in our inspection. That's what I was saying first. We do the stages of inspection, but we don't issue the certificate of stages of completion. But we
No, I not talk about completion, man. Me not reach completion yet. My understanding, I happen to have supervised my own building many years ago in Old Harbour. And I know that after I reach a certain stage, I had to wait for the St. Catherine Parish Homes to send somebody to inspect it and to satisfy himself that what I had done was correct and in accordance with the plan. And only when I got that piece of paper from him could that contractor move now to start pour more concrete.
Yes, that is the case, sir. That is the case, sir.
But it's not being done.
That is the case. But I can speak, you make reference to a specific case in terms of our inspections. And we have stepped up our inspection regime, as you would have seen in different steps that we have taken. And we are glad that you brought us that particular side to our attention, because we encourage persons to when you cite these issues, if you are not clear, you can also seek information from us. There is also our website that we put up where we are doing right now. We are putting up what is approved and how much it is approved for, and the heights and the different floors and stories. Because we understand these issues that we are facing right now and so forth, so we put in measures to mitigate these issues.
Go ahead, finish your point. Yes, let me not interrupt you.
Yes, for that particular site that you have identified, it would have copied it. I'm glad that you have raised that issue, because that would have came up in our mandatory inspection that we do every 3 months. So I'm glad that you would have identified the issue and brought it to our attention, but it would have eventually been captured in our regime that we have set out since December to intensify our monitoring and our inspections.
As I understand it, your department is supposed to submit to the corporation each month a list of the inspections that you have carried out, no? Isn't that correct?
Yes, sir. That's something that we put in, sir.
So is that being done now?
Yes, sir. Most definitely. Yes, sir.
Would you know from the top of your head how many inspections were reported for 2021?
I wouldn't know off the top of my head, but I have the data. We have the data, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
And can you recall from your own institutional memory, what sort of percentage in terms of the inspections that were done? In what percentage of those cases were breaches identified? Hello? Have we lost Mr. Chavans? Oh Lord, we lost him at an inappropriate time. Seems to have lost him. We're going to try to reconnect, but in the meanwhile, we're going to want to be joined as well by Mr. Chavans is back? No, he's not. You want to take a break? Mr. Chavans, you're back?
Yes, I'm back.
Yeah. Roughly what percentage of those inspections disclose breaches?
About 15% of those inspections.
15%?
Yes, sir.
And what sort of action was taken in relation to those breaches?
So we take actions that is prescribed in law. So we issue stop notice, and we issue within the 14 days of those stop notice, we issue an enforcement notice. That enforcement notice outlines to the developer or the builder what are the concerns and the breaches are, and specified times are, and it is set out as to what needs to be done to remedy those breaches.
Can you recall in recent times where those requirements have included demolition of structures or part of structures that were erected in contravention of what was approved?
Yes, sir. Because we have matters in the court now of that sort.
Even before they go to the court, I mean, have you been able to get developers or builders to demolish structures that they should not have put up?
No. We haven't got it. That's why we end up in the courts, because they refuse to do what is prescribed in the enforcement notice. And the enforcement notice would specify that you demolish and bring it back, revert back to what was originally approved. Yeah. Or yes. So we have.
So when you put a matter before the court, would you have put a stop order on it prior to going to court?
Yes, sir, most definitely. That's the, yes.
And when you put the stop order, do you monitor it to see whether or not work really stopped? Because, for example, that Kings Drive one I'm telling you, the last time I passed around there, it was working same way.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We do the monitoring, and then it was observed that, and then we issue additional notices if that's the case. But in the Kings Drive case, yes, we do the monitoring. And as I said to you before, we have a resource issue. We have to work with the resources that we have available.
What resources you have?
And we, in terms of manpower, that's in terms of
why you have that problem?
Because we have a construction.
You have 11 building inspectors, as I understand it.
No. We only have 5 building inspectors.
Only 5?
Yes, only 5.
I thought it was 11.
No, our support staff includes 11, but we only have 5 building officers.
Those would be people who are qualified building officers.
Yes, and they would do the underground monitoring.
So why you only have 5? Why you don't have more?
Because we had requested from Ministry of Finance, and we have highlighted the deficiencies that we have, and we are waiting.
So what you need is the money or the approval for the post?
We need both.
Well, you shouldn't need the money because you collect a whole lot of money for application fees, no? $135 per square meter, I believe.
But sir, I must remind you that our building fees were set to have increases for the past 2 years, but because of the pandemic, we were asked. We are still the lowest in the island. So because of the pandemic, we were asked that
Oh, you haven't applied them yet?
No.
I see. All right, well, put it this way. The KCC is your first port of call, right?
Yes,
to deal with these breaches.
Yes, sir.
And the general perception that I have from people that I speak with is that the KCC is not doing a particularly good job. You need to straighten up. Too much of this nonsense going on, man. People just building as they like.
We have been.
I'm telling you as a fact, because I happen to know, right? Remember, I spent some years as Minister of Construction, right? So I have a whole heap of contacts within that industry. And I happen to know that some of these developers, when they submit a plan to you for approval, them have a separate plan that they plan to use to do the building, That you don't see that plan at all. They only want you to approve the one that they send to you. And after they get that approval, them put that aside. And it's the other plan that you didn't see that they give the contractor and said, "Oh, this is what I want you to build." Things aren't going like that, man. That is no different from the people who dumping garbage in the gully. Them breaking the law.
I cannot agree with you more, and we are putting measures in place to mitigate that as best as possible. And I encourage my officers, when we do site visit, ensure the approved plans are on site, and we carry our approved plans to ensure that whatever is on site is what matches. When we do identify breaches, we issue notices and we take the necessary enforcement activities. Because we are putting in quite a few measures in order to mitigate against that and to step up our inspection regimes. We also go further. We also rotate our officers every 6 months, so our officer doesn't get too familiar with a space, because we divide the municipality into 6 areas, and those areas we just locally zone it into based on, we name these zones based on mayors that have served in the cabinet.
Yeah, well, that's a good idea.
Yes, yes, yes.
Although when you rotate them, they can easily exchange notes. But anyhow, that's another
We
matter.
can. We put in, yes, we put in measures, and we're trying to be as transparent as possible, because with the policy direction, with the chairman of the council, His Worship the Mayor, is put what we're advocating for. We're in the process. We're doing it now. Is to place everything on our website. So if 10 Kings Drive is come to us for consideration is approved, we state their floors, the amount of floors, and the amount of units.
Mr. Chavan, might I make a proposal for your consideration before we wrap up?
Sure.
There is a requirement, as you know, where the developer is required to post a notice on the site indicating what he is applying for before the approval is granted, no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's the intent to build notice. Yes,
yeah, intent to build. And he is also required to put up one at the police station, in the nearest police station, at the nearest post office.
Yes, sir.
With the greatest will in the world. And you will appreciate that. That is archaic something, man. That is old-time something. Why not put that information on a website so that I can access that website at any time? I can do it every week, every 2 weeks, every month, just to see whether or not there's any proposal that is going to affect my neighborhood, so that if I want to raise concerns, I can raise it. Why we can't do that? Who the devil you think is going to go to the post office or police station to go look for some notice? People don't do that anymore, man.
I am here wondering if you're viewing my computer or with my program.
No, man. I don't even know which part your office is.
That is exactly what we're proposing. We're in the process of doing that just now. So all intent to build notice, we're in the process.
Well, can you get that up and running by tomorrow?
It is done already. Just going through the trial stage. So by the end of September, it should be up and running, so it can be accessible.
I'm ashamed that a law that was enacted in 2019 is talking about putting up notice at post office. But post offices are fast becoming redundant, you know. The only purpose they serve now is to pay people pension, and even that now I believe they're moving to direct bank account something. Anyhow, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you very much. Mr. Xavier Chavans, the Chief Engineer at the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation. You want us to take a break? Let's take a break, and we come back. We get back into this discussion. Jamaica Live, we're on Bridge 99. We're trying to make contact again with Mr. Peter Knight, the Executive Director of the National Environmental and Protection Agency. Mr. Knight, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Let me. Well, you know me. You know me well, and you have known me for a long time. You know, one of the things that I inherited from Hugh Shearer is, no matter how complex the issues is, try and see if I can break it down so that you can understand it, and other people that you're talking to can understand it as well. Let me tell you what goes on, Peter, and I know this as a fact. A developer looking at a piece of land, he wants to do a project. He knows what the zoning requirements are. He knows what the density is. Him don't need nobody to tell him that. Him know all of that. He knows what the sewage disposal requirement is going to be, which may affect the number of units that he is allowed to, that he can get approval for. He prepares a set of plans that he is satisfied will get approval, and he submits that to the local authority. If it is under 10 units, you will never see it. If it is over 10 units, it is referred to you for advice, no? Am I technically correct?
Technically, yes.
Yeah, okay. So what he does, he prepares that plan and he submits it. But while that plan is being considered, he might have a different set of plan that he's preparing or has already prepared. And once he gets approval for plan A, and put that in a drawer and him tell the contractor, take plan B, that is what you're going to build. That's what goes on, Peter. Well, and if, you know, what would stop it is the enforcement, you know. What would stop it is if when the building inspector goes there and he looks at the foundation and says, but hold on, this is not 8 one-bedroom units you're building, man. This is something, them kind of steel you're putting in the foundation is a whole heap of floors you plan to build. We could stop it right there, but what happens is that it's in a particular case that you know I had to speak to you about. 9 one-bedroom units is when the man was putting on the 4th floor. And I brought it to the attention of the KSAMC. That is when they went quickly go look and say, but hold on, what the hell is going on here? And issue a stop order on the project. But that is something that goes on regularly. We can't run a municipality. We can't run a metropolis like this.
And you're correct, Prime Minister. But let me just put in context that I'll never disclose that I got any complaint from you. So I just want to say that publicly.
No, but I'm saying publicly that I call you.
No, that's up to you.
Yeah.
But that's not up to me.
I'm a citizen.
Yes.
And to your credit, you take calls from citizens. It's not only from officials.
Yes, and we don't disclose persons who bring matters to our attention for confidentiality. But we did act on that matter, and the National Environment and Planning Agency, we were the ones who served a stop order on the developer. But we also had consultation with the KSAMC and the developer. We called in the developer, and the developer was mandated to go back to revise the drawings that the developer was already in breach. But Prime Minister, I think you started out, and that's a correct footing. Remember that when you were Prime Minister, you tried to put a fix to this matter. And I'm not going to revise the history with you. Suffice it to say that monitoring and enforcement is one of our greatest challenges. It is a challenge because we can find the effort to come together, all the planning, environment and planning authorities, and to act as one.
But why?
So
Why, Peter?
Because of this issue of turf and mandate. It's an issue of turf and mandate. And remember now, for example, we don't have a building mandate. There's a building act that is administered by the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development and the Municipal Corporation.
Yeah, well, I'm not so much concerned about where the responsibility lies, I'm more concerned with the fact that the responsibility is not being discharged. So I'm not holding NEPA. I understand the limitations of NEPA's role in this matter. But yesterday, for example, my elder brother, who loves to get into nostalgia and reflect on the old days, was reminding me that when we grew up in the country, we never have running water. We had a pit toilet outside the yard, and if rain catches you, you have to hold it until rain stops before you can go there. But he reminded me that every so often, I don't remember if it was every month, the public health inspector visited the yard to go inspect the pit toilet. And him had a sign put up in there, had a piece of paper that pasted on the wall, and he would enter the date when he inspected and whether or not he was satisfied with what he found. That was enforcement. Because if something was wrong with it, he would tell us, listen, this is what is wrong with it and you have to fix it. That can't be beyond us, man.
As I said,
if I'm in the KSAC and I'm a building inspector and I say, all right, this project is approved, was approved from 2 months ago. Well, it's really due an inspection. Let me go see what is going on. When I go there, I must look at the foundation and I must use my technical knowledge and say, yes, what you're doing is in accordance with the plans that you had submitted to us and which we approve. Fine, you can move to the next stage. And if it is not, part of the problem too, is that when you find that they are breaching the regulations in terms of what was approved, there must be some punishment, man. It can't be just, well, listen, man, what you're doing not right, you better correct it. You must be punished.
That's true.
You must pay some money. And they must tear down what is built that should not have been built. When they start doing that, and they start feeling it in their pocket, you're going to see how quick they start behaving themselves.
And that is correct. And let me just say, because all is not lost, when I say we, the NRCA, the Natural Resources Conservation Authority, Town and Country Planning Authority, we have engaged with the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation at the highest level, His Worship the Mayor, the CEO Town Clerk and their team, and we have had lengthy discussion pertaining to a number of the challenges we are jointly facing. And we have developed a modality as to how to respond. Bear in mind also that we have some court cases that we are appealing that we have also discussed. So, as you rightly said, the challenge is not beyond us, but we now have to have better integration and coordination.
Yes.
And more joint site visits. I want to say this though, I want to say this though. In all my time here at the National Environment and Planning Agency, one of the challenges that we have is that permittees and licensees don't read the approvals that are given to them.
Then they must feel it, man.
But that is part of the challenge. So what my strategy is, when we have major projects, we like to call in, and I use that word deliberately, developers and investors to go through the environment and planning.
No, I'm not into the powder puff business. Follow me now. When I was talking to Mr. Chavans, one of the things that I suggested, and he quickly told me that that was already on their agenda. Same way this business where you put notice on the zinc fence of what you are intending to build. That is foolishness, man. That went out with my old man. I suggested to him, put it on a website so that I can go on the website every now and again to check to see if there's anything planned for my neighborhood that I may have concerns about. Might I suggest as well, when a developer is the subject of a stop order or an enforcement order, bring the public into your confidence, man. Plaster that on a website somewhere.
I'm happy to tell you, Prime Minister.
So that on a website I can know that this project,
yes,
which is being under construction on Hope Road, number so and so, is now the subject of a stop order. So every time I drive in on Hope Road, I go and look and make sure that I don't see nothing going on over there.
Well, I am pleased to tell you that all approvals by the NRCA TCP are on our website. Each month they are uploaded on our website.
Yeah, the KSAC does that too, but I am saying by that time the horse gone through the gate.
But
I'm saying when you apply,
tell you that the enforcement actions are also on our website, so persons can see those actions. And we have a number of matters in court, not only planning and development, but wider matters to do with the environment. So they are posted. They are posted.
Well, so I'm a little encouraged.
Yes, we're trying to get the public to understand that they can also, the very point you're making, play a role by looking at the actions.
That's right.
Actions that have been taken.
The public can be your biggest set of enforcers, you know.
Yes.
Once you get them on your side, they will help to make sure that no nonsense don't go on in them neighborhood. But they're not being brought to the table.
What I think we're trying to do, and we have instructions from the current Prime Minister, is to, and we are on the cusp of doing that, to have the Kingston and St. Andrew and Pedro Keys development order confirmed by the Minister, who is the Prime Minister. We have just received the final sign-off from the Water Resources Authority. So very soon the Minister should be signing off on the development order. We also have
a bigger issue, and I'm out of time. We have to take that up another time.
When you're ready, next time, we'll talk again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peter Knight, the Executive Director of the National Environmental and Planning Agency. We're up on the break. We'll be back in a short while. Welcome back. It's Jamaica Live. We're on Bridge 99. We're going to be linking shortly with Irish Jam in New York and talking to Beauregard, who is our man up there. But in the meanwhile, we're going to return to the discussion of building construction lawlessness. That's what it is. Lawlessness that is taking place. And we had a discussion with Mr. Xavier Chavans, who is the chief engineer at the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation. We also had a discussion with the executive director of the National Environmental and Planning Agency. Mr. Peter Knight. We're hoping to be joined now by Mr. Lenworth Kelly, who is the president of the Incorporated Masterbuilders Association. We don't have him on yet. And we don't have Beauregard on yet. He's probably doing some housekeeping work up in New York. So he probably is not ready for us. But this issue... Beauregard, are you there? So I'm hearing all this music on my headset. Hey, Wambo.
I'm here.
Is you playing them wicked music up the sun?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes,
sir. I was listening to the discussion coming into work this morning, this afternoon, and very, very interesting topic. And I'm sure a lot of people here in the tri-state area are waiting to hear what you were talking about.
Yeah, because what we don't get away with out here, them couldn't get away with it up there. You can't get approval to put up a 2-story building, and before you know it, you're going 4 floors. That couldn't happen in New York.
Well, maybe not in our community, not in the Caribbean community, but those things definitely do take place here, in some other communities, and
Is that right?
People can get away with it, but maybe not so much in the Caribbean community.
I thought it was only here that we put up with them kind of slackness. I didn't know you do it up here too. How you been?
I've been good, sir. I've been good.
How's the weather?
The weather is lovely today. Lovely.
That's good.
Wonderful weekend.
Beginning to cool down now, I hope.
Yes, well, in a matter of weeks, we're going to be drawing back for those windbreakers and, the jacket and them things. So
yeah, well, I hope. With the kind of changes that we're seeing now with climate change, you don't know what kind of winter you're going to have this year. What is projected?
Well, the winter them will get more wickeder and wickeder. They're getting longer as they each and every year come around. The summers are shorter. So all of that is I guess, global warming, as they say.
But you're accustomed to that. I couldn't deal with it.
Yes, by now some of us are accustomed to it, but not fully. There's nothing like the weather in Jamaica or in the Caribbean.
Well, you almost buy a ticket and come more frequently,
Yes, we definitely try. That's why, a lot of us here, they come here and they work very hard and try to, when they get a break, they go back home on vacation.
Yeah, well, hail up all of them for me. I haven't been that side for a good while, but hopefully in October I'm going to be up there. So if I get up there, I'm going to give you a shout.
Definitely. Hope to see you soon, sir.
Yeah, okay, Beauregard, who is at Irish Jam in New York. We're hoping to talk to Mr. Lenworth Kelly. We have him online. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, Sir Bruce.
How are you?
Not too bad. Poco, giving thanks.
We have a problem that I need you to help me to sort out, right? We have a prevalence of situations where people doing construction development. We're focusing today on residential construction, no?
Yeah.
People, the developers, they get plans prepared, they go to the local authority, they get approval, NEPA where NEPA is involved, and they get approval for a set of plans, right? And then now, they call one of your members to put up the building. But the plan that they give your member is not the one that they got approval for. And your member now takes that plan and go get his own QS to go price it out for him, and he presents a price. And the developer and him sit down and them argue, and he may have certain advantages in terms of equipment, so he can shave off some money off the price. They reach an agreement, and he proceeds now to go and build. It's either that, or he has the original plan that was approved. But the developer says to him, listen, you see this foundation here, this is what you must use. Does your member of the Incorporated Masterbuilders Association, does he not have a responsibility to ensure that what he is using to put up that building is the plan that he is satisfied was approved by the appropriate regulatory agency? Or is he just free to go and do whatever the developer says, even if what the developer is telling to do is contrary to what was approved? Where do you come down on this?
No, I'm agreeing with you. Yes, we have a responsibility. Usually what takes place, Mr. Golden, is that when you you would have gone through the pricing and everything. When you come to build, the contractor gets possession of the site. So you are now solely in possession of the site. What you require from the client is the approved drawings and the conditions, because you have to laminate them and put them up. You have to display them.
Yes.
So because the contractor, is the one who will now liaise with the municipal corporation to say, I need you to come and inspect at these stages. So you send them a schedule.
Yes.
Right? So you say, I'm going to do foundation this time, I'm going to do first floor slab this time, I'm going to do second floor, and so on.
Yes.
And so you are responsible, you are in possession of the site. And oftentimes when the notice is served, it is the contractor who receives the notice.
Yes.
Right? So the contractor ensures that he has, and you must have a copy of the approved set on site, because when the inspector comes, he don't want to say anything but the approved set. So you keep one of those, not even a copy of it. One of the approved sets must be on site. We keep them in safekeeping, plastic or whatever.
Lenworth.
We only use those when they turn up.
Lenworth.
Yes.
You sound like a lecturer, because you're telling me how things supposed to run.
Well, I'm telling you how I know it.
But tell me something now. How you explain when you get approval for a building that is supposed to have 2 floors, but the contractor is busy building the 4th floor?
All right. So we're going to examine it this way now, Sir Bruce. It's hard to put a number to it, but I think perhaps the majority of developers, when you go right across the spectrum, do their own construction. So the developer is the contractor. Right? That's the case. So you look around, you have some developers.
And that developer may not be a member of your association.
No, may not be a member of my association, and may not be a member of the JDA for that matter, because there's a whole proliferation of developers around now.
But he's required by law to be registered with the real estate board, isn't he?
By law.
Yes.
That's another matter, and you can probably invite Andrew from the real estate board to come and say how it works.
We asked them to come on and then tell us some breed of nonsense about this matter is outside of their remit. Kind of foolishness that.
But you can't speak, no man, but you can't speak in general terms.
Not general terms. Section 35 of the Real Estate Act requires that any developer doing a project that involves more than 5 lots or more than 5 units must have a license from the real estate board.
Yeah, so let me clarify.
You can't tell me no nonsense about this matter is outside of their remit. What kind of foolishness is that? Them think I born yesterday?
I'm agreeing with you, but perhaps they think you want to speak to specific developers, right? But they should come on and edify everyone in that regard. So for us, it's if you build outside of what is approved, you are deliberate.
But you're not liable.
Well, you mean as a contractor?
As a contractor.
The contractor wouldn't be liable because it would be the developer who would have gone and sought the approval.
Yes.
So what will happen if you are there as a contractor and they turn up, the parish council rep turns up and put a stop order on you? Well, you, the contractor, have to stop, but you notify the client and say you need to start this out because the parish council have an issue with what you're doing here.
Do you have in your association a code of ethics, a code of conduct or anything that says that to your members that, look, if a developer wants you to do something that is against what was approved, this is the position you ought to take?
No, it is not that specific. But that you know what you observe, you work with whatever is presented as designed and approved. And only thing that changes that is an instruction from the professional or from the approving agency.
And the quantity surveyor also. Your member can't get paid until the quantity surveyor signs off on the work that has been done, no?
And not just that, the quantity surveyor does the valuation. So yes, you have done this amount of work. The architect signs off on it also in the case of building contracts because the architect is saying that Not just that this amount of work, but this quality of work.
Yes.
So both signed.
So when the quantity surveyor is signing off on work that is done on the 4th floor, when the quantity surveyor jolly well know that what he got approval for was 2 floors, that quantity surveyor has some questions to answer as well.
Have some questions to answer, yes. Yes, indeed.
Well, you have been far more helpful than some other people that I've been talking to on this matter.
No, man, I mean...
Because at least you're coming straight up.
Yeah, there are some things there, though, Sir Bruce, I think. That generally in non-compliance are well, the partial compliance is non-compliance also. But there are a couple of things residential-wise. I don't know if your focus today is probably just on the multi-story, the higher density.
Yes.
Remember that you also have areas where we're doing, you're doing on flat and it's individual.
Yes.
And
there are conditions that apply to those as well.
Yeah, man, and there are reasons why we have building regulation.
Yeah.
And one of them is public safety.
Let me tell you let me just share my position with you. See, I am quite open to an argument that says that look, your building requirements, stipulations are too severe. You're discouraging development. You're discouraging investment. I'm open to that, and I will say no. All right, make us sit down and look at it, because I may very well agree with some of what is being said, right? The difficulty I have is that once we sign off on it, even if everybody is not happy, we must live by that. That's what must obtain.
Right.
It can't be that, look, I mean, them wicked people down at KSST say I can't build more than 14 units on this lot. Look how big the lot is. And look how high I can go up. And therefore, I'm going to do my own thing because I don't agree with them. That is the approach that I can't take, because that is jungle, that is free for all, that is every man for himself.
And
I believe that is no more acceptable than the man who capture a piece of land somewhere, and before you know it, him put up 3 stories on the piece of land, and we tell him that he's not supposed to do it, and we ought to put bulldozers to tear him down. Well, you need to put some bulldozers on some of them approved plans where what was built was completely at variance with what was approved.
You know, just last night I got in my news feed, there was 2 multi-story towers in India. I didn't get to check the accuracy of the information, but just to say that in some jurisdictions people are serious. What they found, what the authorities said they found, was that there's a multiplicity of breaches. And so they demolished the towers. There seem to be well over 30 stories there.
What you saying to me?
Yeah. So you know, but that is what, because they are looking down the road. I said this is a risk to public safety. So we take it down now. Right.
And Lenworth, I mean, just to reinforce the point, I am not opposed to dense development. You know. I mean, if you look at you look at a country like Singapore. Singapore is smaller than the parish of St. Thomas, and Singapore has, I think, a slightly higher population than Jamaica has. All bunched up in this one little piece of place that is smaller than St. Thomas. And when you go to Singapore, you have people living on the 54th floor of a building, right? And they have to do that because they just don't have the land. We are going to get to that point too. So certainly some of our really urbanized communities, and we're going to have to be prepared to deal with that. So I am not one of those who believe that we must continue in perpetuity this notion. There are some places in St. Andrew where you have a lot of land that is 1.5 acres. And the covenant says only 1 dwelling can be built on that land. We're going to have to come to terms with those things and change them, because that can't carry us through for the next 30, 40 years. But all I'm saying is that whatever we're doing, there must be order. There must be structures. There must be systems. And if we say, now look, 30 habitable rooms per acre is what is permitted, if we want to change the 30 to 50, then let us work on that. But so long as it is 30, it must be 30. And that is what must be done when you get on the construction site.
Mm-hmm. And some of what you'll find out there, Sir Bruce, is that you go in a neighborhood and it says it's 30. But when you look across the road, you know that can't be 30, that go closer to 100.
Yes.
And so you get into this thing now, is it precedent? Is it, because it's fully occupied, so there must have been titles issued. And so if it was not approved, you get titles issued. So you need to examine the whole process. Because how do you get to titling if somebody has built illegally? That's not supposed to happen.
You're perfectly right. Perfectly right. Because the registrar of titles is not supposed to issue title until they get a certification that the project was done in accordance with all the necessary regulations and approvals.
Right. So there you go. So there are checks in there that we can use, but somehow some people seem to be able to get by. Some developers, they don't understand how some people or some things pass on them to them things can't pass.
Well, some of us understand.
Yeah.
Some of us understand, and that's another story. And maybe say more about that in a few days from now. But I want to go ahead. Sorry.
No. I just want to say that there is I think people tend to think solely cost and you want to make the maximum profit when you're contravening the regulations. And it's really, people need to understand that it's largely about good order and the public safety. Because remember, if the NWC knows that you are supposed to put 20 units there now, when you put 40, that's more load on their infrastructure. They're not necessarily prepared for that.
Yes.
And other things may need to be done. So there's a whole bunch of things affect other things.
Plus the garbage collection. And
yes, there's the garbage collection. I must make a plug here, Sir Bruce. The NSWMA must be at the table when the applications for approvals are being considered, because they are going to have to be the ones who are going to respond to this additional loading.
Every day.
They need to be able to plan for it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because people can't store garbage for 2 weeks. So that is a ongoing, every week, every 3 days kind of responsibility that has to be taken into account.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we can continue the discussion whenever you choose, but it needs this kind of angle, this kind of continuous dialogue on the matter, to see how, when you get all the stakeholders involved, and to see how best to go forward.
And it needs some rigorous enforcement. One of the things that I'm very pleased about is how activist the courts have become. Because I've seen a couple of cases where the courts have put their foot down and said, we're not putting up with this any longer. There's one particular case where the judge actually got up off the bench and went to the site to go look at the site herself, so that you could get a better understanding of what you were dealing with. And I'm so happy to see that kind of aggressive approach being taken by the court. But we shouldn't have to go to the courts, because going to the courts costs a lot of money.
Right, and those who don't have those resources to go to the courts
can't afford to. Yeah.
They suffer. We know we get the complaints, but they suffer.
Yeah.
So hopefully, because I think now they have gone back to, I believe, in a sense, how it used to be before, that you must get the restrictions, any restrictions on your covenant sorted out before the approval is granted.
Yes.
Back in the old days, what used to happen now, when you go to the parish council, as it was then, they would go through the list with you and say, get this done, these things, and come back. What seems to have happened over time is that they grant their approval subject to these lists of things that you must get done.
Yes.
Right. But really, the way it was, we should maintain that way, that you get these things done before you get the approval.
Yes.
And not after. Things slip through the cracks, and a lot of that has been happening.
And that would include modification of covenants too.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mr. Lenworth Kelly, thank you very, very much for joining us.
All right, sir, Bruce. Take care. Have a good one.
Thank you very much. You've been helpful.
Bye.
We're talking about building construction lawlessness. That's what we're talking about today. I had some very, very interesting perspectives on it. We're hoping to be joined shortly by the president of the Jamaica Developers Association, because they are the prime culprits, you know. They're not the only ones, because there are many actors in this in this process. But they are the ones who apply for the approvals. They are the ones who have a duty to faithfully, scrupulously observe the conditions of approval. But some of them are the ones who, quite frankly, they never planned to observe those conditions in the first place. Long before they even got those approvals, they knew exactly what it is that they were going to build, and they weren't seeking no approval for that. They just want to get approval of one set of drawings, and what they are going to build is another. The point that Mr. Kelly was making is an important point, you know. When you build those units and you sell them, you have to issue titles to the purchasers. Otherwise, the purchaser is not buying it. The purchasers can't get no mortgage financing unless there's a registered title. And in order to get a registered title, the local authority, in the case of the corporate area, the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, has to issue to the registrar of titles a certificate to say we are satisfied that this project has been completed in accordance with the regulations and in accordance with the approvals that were granted. And the KCMC has to explain how come so many projects that were built in contravention of what was approved are you able to get titles. And they could only have got titles if the KCMC had issued that certificate of completion to the registrar of titles. How come? And I'm sure that there are some people who say, well, we know that it wasn't done in accordance with what was approved, but then the people pay down on the houses already, and we can't hold them to ransom, or we can't make them suffer because of our own lack of diligence. And therefore, that's why we did it. Well, there's some merit in that argument too. But that can't be the end of the matter. We must find a way to fix it. We're hoping to be joined by Mr. Dayton Wood. Any hope of connecting with him? We're not getting through to him. Oh, I wonder if he's been listening to the program and don't like the argument. But, you know, we have to confront these things, you know. The developers. But as I say, it's not the developers alone. The enforcers, the KSAC and NEPA, they have a responsibility in the matter. The architects have a responsibility in the matter. The quantity surveyors have a responsibility in the matter. The contractors have a responsibility in the matter. The banks and the building societies and the insurance companies who are providing the financing for the project, they have a responsibility in the matter. But so does the developer, because he's the one who decides what is to be built. He's not the one who decides what is approved. That is the regulatory authority, is the local planning authority. But he's the one who tells the contractor, this is what I want you to build for me. And if the contractor is smart enough to say, but hold on, boss, this is not what the KSAC approved. He's the one who said, don't follow what the KSAC approved. This is what I want you to build, because this is how much units I plan to put on the market. And that is how I'm going to make this project profitable. The developers have a case to answer, and I was really hoping that we'd have been able to get Mr. Dayton Wood. Mustn't run from these discussions, you know. Must just face them, acknowledge where we need to straighten up, defend where we feel that criticism is being unjustly leveled, but deal with the issue, because this is where we want to go. Let's take a break. Welcome back. It's Jamaica Live, Bridge 99. We're talking today about building construction lawlessness, a practice that we see so prevalent of building construction activity going on that is in breach of building regulations, some of it being done without approval or being carried out in a manner that is at variance with what has been approved. We're pleased to be joined now by the President of the Jamaica Developers Association, Mr. Dayton Wood. The Developers Association, of course, brings together developers in pursuit of their own interests, but also in order to establish some basic ethics, professional ethics, and do's and don'ts in terms of how they approach it. But they will, and I'm going to explore this with Mr. Wood, they face the problem where perhaps a lot of construction projects are being undertaken by persons who are not members of the Jamaica Developers Association. I mean, anybody who can get his hands on a piece of land can perhaps call himself a developer. Mr. Wood, are you there?
I'm here, sir. How are you today?
Am I correct that a lot of so-called developers may be carrying out projects, but they are not in fact members of your association?
Well, I would call them so-called developers, so they are developers as defined under the Real Estate Board Act and so on. But they are not necessarily members of the association. And
are they licensed with the Real Estate Board?
Well, once you have over a certain number of units, they have to register with the Real Estate Board. It's 6 units.
But do they register?
Well, that would be a pertinent question to ask the Real Estate Board. But I would think so, because the municipal authorities who issue certificates of occupancy and so on and apply to send them on to the titles office to get splinter titles. They normally check with the Real Estate Board to make sure that the project A has been registered with them, and B, if they have been using funds for in the development, that the Real Estate Board then has to discharge the mortgage on it. I know the Real Estate Board has caught some discrepancies here where approvals for 12 units and 21 units are being applied, titles being applied for, and things like that. But on the whole, I would think they are registered with the Real Estate Board.
What happens? What happens if one of your members gets approval for 10 units, but what he has in fact built and put on the market is 20 units? Is that something that your association has some intervening power to deal with it in terms of of membership, or is that entirely left to the enforcers, meaning the local planning authority?
Well, fortunately, sir, we have not had that situation arise with our members, but we as an association check these things. We have members of one of our directors, in fact, who sits on the board of the Real Estate Board as part of the composition of the board by law. We have afforded a seat, and that type of report we would get, and we would certainly act on it. As an association, we pride ourselves, and in fact, we have a Jamaica Developers Association seal of approval that after you have done a certain number of developments and all done satisfactorily, the clients are happy, the regulators are happy, you're then able to put that seal on any ad you place for any subsequent project that you do. So we take these things very seriously.
Well, let me ask you, and I'm going to lean heavily on your own experience as a developer. When you're doing a project, you have your approved plans, no? And from what the Masterbuilders president was telling me, you have to have those laminated and you have to have those on site. And you're the person that the regulatory authorities, when they send their inspector, would interface with, right? So tell me, is it the norm that once you have laid your foundation, you pause until an inspector comes from the KCMC and certifies that what you have done so far is in order? You can proceed to the next stage?
Well, I wouldn't say that that is a norm, sir, because part of the problem is that the municipal authorities do not have the manpower. So large developers, I would think, such as ourselves, would have our quantity surveyors and our engineers certify that the oil is in place as it ought to be. And I would think, in fairness, that is what usually happens.
So let me try and pin this down. If, let us say you're doing a project that may involve, 14 townhouses, what is the likelihood of somebody from KSAC coming to inspect? Or is it likely that you are going to finish that project, put on your roof, paint up and everything, have the model house on display, and no inspector would have come there? You have had to rely entirely...
I wouldn't go that far, sir, because in a large development such as that, you would have the inspectors coming in and looking from time to time. But to answer your first question, which is when you get to you're ready to pour foundation, and you need to do this quickly, you may not have the inspector there at that time.
And time is money.
And time is money. A and B. If you get some rainfall and you're in soft earth and the steel is in the ground and the earth collapses over it, you're in trouble.
Yes.
So it's not so much that the developer only wants to use his engineer to certify, but that there are circumstances which may dictate that happens.
How does the developer get that final certificate that enables him to get his splinter titles?
Well, two things happen. His engineer and his QS and his architect, who is really the man who signs off and it says that it is done and it's done correctly. The KSAC will send their inspectors to come and look at the place to ensure that all is well, and we'll do a walkthrough inspection at that point.
And it is the KSAC inspector who's...
Well, they're using the KSAC, but they're the municipal.
Yeah, but it is he who then prepares the document that goes to the registrar of titles.
Well, the surveyor and the QS sign off and send a document to them, which they double check, and then they prepare documents which then go to the registrar. Yes.
To get your splinter titles.
Correct. And at the registrar sends it to the survey department for them to ensure that the surveys are correct.
Mm-hmm. But we still have these frequent cases that come up. I mean, there's the one in Rosebery, on Rosebery Drive, for example, where the judge had to get up off our bench and go visit the site to satisfy ourselves that what the residents were complaining about was in fact true, and it was true. We have had a situation, as you know, in the Golden Triangle where the matter is now before the appeal court, but the court had ruled on it.
Yeah, several times. So, and then the developer proceeded in regardless.
Yes.
There are two things I think happen there. So until you put that property up for sale, if you have a building plan, this is where part of the problem and where some of the mischief starts, is if you have an approved building plan, you can build. When you decide that you want to get splinter titles now is when you have a problem, because you haven't had covenants modified. And you therefore will not be able to get your splinter titles.
But tell me, how do they get financing for this? I mean, if I go to the bank and I said, look, I need $100 million to borrow to finance this project, certainly the bank is going to want to get a copy of the approved building plan what it is that I'm going to build so that they can know what they're financing?
Well,
So how does that bank countenance? Well, what I got approval for was 14 one-bedroom units, but what I'm building is actually 18 two-bedrooms. And the bank goes along with that and finances it because that is going to give the bank a better return on their money.
Well, you're assuming so that that developer is in fact using a bank.
Well, many of them do. I know some don't, but many do.
Yeah. But I am not sure why. It's a big problem, Mr. Golden.
I know.
And a lot of it stems from the fact that the municipality can review building approval and tell you that it is your responsibility to get the covenants modified. And with the building approval, you can go ahead and build.
But I'm not even focusing so much now on those that are restricted by covenant, I'm just focusing on where somebody built something that has no resemblance to what was approved.
I know, but that is also part of the covenant problem, right? And the people are going ahead and building, and the neighbors have no idea what is being built. None. They don't even put up a sign that says, well, I'll talk to the neighbors. They wouldn't even... if I was doing a development in a neighborhood that is going to complement the neighborhood, I would want my neighbors to buy one of them or tell their friends to buy one of them.
Well,
they have no discussion with them at all.
Yes. And they're required by law to provide a notice, no?
Yes, and the notice ought to be lettering of 1 inch in height.
Yes.
And so on.
Well, I suggested that is all time something we need to... that information really ought to be put on a website where everybody can access it. And Mr. Chevan told me that is what they intend to do shortly.
Right, so, well, we are where we are, and we need to... Part of the difficulty that even the judges are having is that we are operating on a provisional development order from 5 years ago, while the Building Act that is in place is from 1968 or thereabouts, and that is still the law. But we are getting approvals that are walking in between the raindrops between those two things.
Well, the new Building Act is 2019, but I gather the regulations are still not in effect.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Building Act, that's where you started off. We're saying that anybody can call himself a contractor. The new Building Act, Section 65 to 67, I believe, spells out that there ought to be a body that regulates and licenses contractors and grades of contractors. So once that becomes law, hopefully things will become, a little clearer.
Mm. Well,
clarity is what we need. Sunlight is what we need.
Well, you have brought some clarity to the discussion as well, because you have brought some points here that I hadn't factored into my own thinking on the matter. Mr. Dayton Wood, thank you so much for joining us today and adding to the discussion.
You're very welcome, sir, and I look forward to speaking with you another time.
Sure, I look forward to that too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah, okay. Take a break or we continue? We're going to take a break. Welcome back. It's Jamaica Live, Bridge 99. We're talking today about building projects, building regulations, breaches, what I call building lawlessness, building construction lawlessness. We're coming up to the end of the program, but we wouldn't want to close the program without a particular perspective that I'm so pleased that we're about to have, and that is from Dr. Patricia Green, who is a registered architect. She's a conservationist. She's an independent scholar. She's an advocate for the built and natural environment. And Patricia is somebody I've known for a long time, no? One of the things I know about her is that she brings to her own thoughts on this matter a tremendous amount of research, but also an enormous passion for the sustainability of our environment. She's looking to see what this environment is going to be 50 years, 100 years from now, because she understands that so much of that is going to depend on what we do with it today. So I'm very pleased now to welcome to the program Dr. Patricia Green. Dr. Green, welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, and it's still morning. Good morning, and thank you so much, Prime Minister. What a wonderful introduction. Oh, my goodness.
Well, you deserve
honored.
it. You deserve it. You and I go back a long time, no?
We do.
Tell me now. I've been beaten up since morning about the prevalence of building activity that is taking place. There are two angles that I want you to comment on. One is a question of what it is that we are permitted to approve, because that is wasn't handed down by Moses, no? And whether or not, in terms of our regulations, whether or not they are appropriate to the sustainability that I know you're so concerned about, is one issue. But where my focus has been today is the multiplicity of instances where a developer, he prepares two sets of plans in a part. He sends in one to the KCC that he knows he can get approval for because that fits with the density requirements and so on. But he has his architect busy preparing a different set of plans. That's the one he's going to go use to build. So he gets approval to put up 10 one-bedroom units, and before you know what happened, he has 22 bedroom units on the same piece of land. Why is this allowed to happen with such ease and with such impunity?
Excellent question. I really want to commend you. I've been listening to the program, the various questions you've asked and the answers and how you've responded, and I commend you because you and I have gone back from Ministry of Works, Construction and Housing. You were my minister at one time in my life, and I know that I've been involved in Spanish Town, and so we have interface in that regard. And I just want to respond because I am a woman of faith, Prime Minister. And when you said the biblical and Moses, it is God's law that we should be proper stewards of the land, and we should be proper stewards of the environment. So God desires for us to look after the land, and he blesses us when we bless and look after the environment. So when we see certain things happening in our nation today, when we see gullies overflowing and sadly we read in the news about children missing and bodies not found, it's because we have been irresponsible with what God has given us to look after and to steward the land. It is said in Genesis. So I want to start there because that's the basic principle that we have before God, to be responsible and to pass on generationally. So we have a responsibility to look after something and hand it on to those who follow us. Against that background, we find that one of the key things that's missing in Jamaica, and which I believe is really causing the major upheaval, is a lack of a comprehensive planning strategy. In the absence of this comprehensive planning strategy, it becomes a no-man land, a wilderness, and everybody is building a Tower of Babel. I'm just being biblical. I'm following on. But this is what is happening. So we go to a particular neighborhood that is designated as 30 habitable rooms. And a 4-story building is going up, which is going into 120-odd habitable rooms per acre. And that's wrong.
Can you pause there?
Sure.
When that happens, why isn't that developer required to put the D9 bulldozer on it and tear it down? And if he's not prepared to do it, we'd be happy to do it for him. Why is that kind of enforcement not being done?
I asked His Worship the Mayor the question when the citizens' rights for the city met with the mayor in April. And I specifically asked the mayor that question myself. I said, Mayor, when are you going to go and demolish some of those structures? And what the mayor said, he will do it when the government when the court empowers him to do it. And that is what we are having now. We have a situation where things are being allowed to happen. Now, I want to clarify very clearly, and we've been using the word of professionals and architects and so on, but as I work and interface with the Citizens Association across the corporate area, and we are looking at some of the plans that they have and the drawings or the designs that they have been given, and they are supposed to be given to this free access by the KSAMC. There is a website. We don't want anybody to tell us that they're about to. There is a website called Amanda. Every single property or development that is submitted to the entities, KSAMC, and in fact, the municipal corporations and NEPA is supposed to be logged on Amanda.
Who maintains Amanda?
I can go on Amanda and look at these plans. So then citizens are being forced to use the access to information to get understanding of what's happening next door. And when I look at those plans, Minister, because I am a professional registered architect, I cannot recognize them. And what we are learning is that there are a number of developments that are going on which are being done by what is termed building practitioners, which is against the law, in that a building practitioner is only allowed to do a certain square footage of development, not a 4-story. So we are having persons who are outside of the professional training of architects, engineers, quantity surveyors. So when you speak to those kinds of things, then it's a different response that you're getting.
Pat, what do we do? What do we do about those members of your profession who are supervising a project and they know that what they are supervising is contrary to what was approved?
Well, you see, you're talking about approvals. And I have learned since I have started working with the citizens and looking at this thing that approval has different types of meanings. And you have mentioned that in the course of the conversation.
No, I'm talking about what carries the stamp of the KSAMC that says this is what is approved.
I'm still waiting to see that. Because I am being told by certain people within the various entities, the governmental entities, and out there in the development process that they have approved. And I am unclear as what approval means. There's a conditional approval, and the KCMC by law is mandated under the 2018 Building Act to issue a building approval. So there is a building approval, which means that a developer or whomever is ready to build. Before the building approval is issued, a number of entities, Ministry of National Water Commission, National Roads.
I know that part. I know that. Let us satisfy ourselves with the building approval. Okay. KSAMC issues this as a building approval, whatever may have been the inputs of other agencies. This is what the KSAMC has approved. But this is what is supposed to be built, and it says no more than 2 floors. But we have architects and we have quantity surveyors. Architects supervising, quantity surveyors doing the quantities for the 3rd floor and the 4th floor. Shouldn't their licenses be called up to have so that we can have a look at this?
The question has been asked, Prime Minister, and the issue is somebody has to carry those individuals to the various professional organizations and say we have something against that individual who is practicing. So the question is being asked, have there been any persons who have been sent up before the disciplinary board? So that's where those things come in. There's a procedure. So if you have a grievance against one of the professionals, whether it's a medical doctor, a dentist, or an architect or engineer, then you submit your grievance to the disciplinary board, and they will meet and they will deal with it within the context of their organization. And that's procedural. But I want to enforce that there is a conditional approval, and persons will start the construction with all, and and are expecting that in good faith they will get the overall approval. And that is where the problem lies, that people are being given conditional approval because no building approval should ever be issued until it has fulfilled all the requirements from National Works, National Water Commission. You know the process, sir. You have been there. You have been the minister, and you have been instrumental in putting through a number of these legislations.
Tell me now.
So you understand.
Mr. Chavans from the KSAMC this morning told me the new Building Act came into effect in January of 2019. That is more than 3 years ago. But he says that the act is basically in limbo because, Mr. Dayton Wood, the president of the Developers Association, seemed to have confirmed that as well. Because they're still waiting on the regulations that have not yet been promulgated. Is that so?
Well, I don't understand that statement because when I go through certain sections of the Act, such as Section 8 of the Act, it is being mandated, it is being implemented. So I don't understand that you have a Building Act which has been promulgated, it is law, and it is being put effect for, let's say, Section 7, but they're not exercising Section 45 of the Act. If they issue a stop order, there is a procedure with a stop order. We have a particular project within the Citizens Associations group on Evans Avenue in the community of Acadia, where it has been on the front page of the news.
I've seen it.
There's a stop order. And if you go there from 2 years ago, there's a stop order. And the Citizens Association have actually shown records of the building being completed.
I don't believe you.
The KSAMC...
Not only do I not believe you, but I'm in trouble. I'm over time. I'm over 1 o'clock. Pat, I want to thank you so much. We may have to pick this up again, and we'll call you. But I want to thank you so much for joining us today and helping us.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much, and all the best. It's been a very good program.
Good. Thank you so much, Dr. Patricia Green, architect and conservationist. That brings us to the end. We're over time.